Are live. Welcome everyone on Facebook and YouTube who are joining us today. Welcome. This is session number 7 as we are continuing this series on Advent of Divine Justice. We are with Mr. Ehsan Bayat and the Crimson Academy. We are discussing what paragraph of Advent of Divine Justice today?
Paragraph 16.
Paragraph 16. And we are also relating to paragraph 16, the letters from the Guardian. And what are those letters today we're discussing?
We're studying the letter America and the Most Great Peace. And so we're going to be continuing our study. In our last session, we studied paragraphs 1 through 8 of America and the Most Great Peace. So in this session, we'll be continuing paragraphs 9 and on. So probably 9 through 15, at least today.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. So before we begin our session, we're going to say the opening prayer. And Scott, we are ready for you to say the prayer. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Just give me one moment, please.
And let's keep the friends in Louisiana, all the friends around the southern region in our prayers of protection. Thank you.
O my God, O my God. Thou seest me in my lowliness and weakness, occupied with the greatest undertaking, determined to raise thy word among the masses and to spread thy teachings among thy peoples. How can I succeed unless thou assist me with the breath of the Holy Spirit? Help me to triumph by the hosts of thy glorious kingdom and shower upon me thy confirmations, which alone can change a gnat into an eagle, a drop of water into rivers and seas, and an atom into lights and suns. O my Lord, assist me with thy triumphant and effective might, so that my tongue may utter thy praises and attributes among all people, and my soul overflow with the wine of thy love and knowledge. Thou art the omnipotent and the doer of whatsoever thou willst.
Thank you. Ehsan, we are ready for you to share your screen so we can begin the study.
Thank you, Scott, for the prayer. Thank you, John. Okay, so we're going to get back just to recap. We're going to just do a quick recap over paragraph 16, because that's what we're studying, the Advent of Divine Justice. So we want to bring it back to why are we studying America and the Most Great Peace? Okay, in case you missed it in our last session. Okay, so let me full screen this. So this is paragraph 16. This is a monumental paragraph in Advent of Divine Justice. This is a paragraph where the beloved guardian is now addressing the early American Baha'i community, its trials, its tribulations, its sufferings, all the aspects that it had to go through, namely defections and all of these myriad of problems, being far away from the origin of the faith itself, not having translations, in the sense having a fragmentary portion of the literature embodying its laws, tenets, histories, and then subjected from its infancy to tests of extreme severity, involving at times defection, prominent members. And through all of those, even more, and compounded with these forces of darkness, namely corruption, moral laxity, and ingrained prejudice. But even with all of these problems, and they are so severe, and we'll be exploring them as we're going to get into America and the Most Great Peace, even through all of those problems, unaided by any of its sister communities, whether East or in the West, by virtue of the celestial potency with which the all-loving Master has abundantly endowed it. And where and when did he do that? It's called Tablets of the Divine Plan, right? So through his Tablets of the Divine Plan, he endowed America through the Tablets of the Divine Plan to have that spiritual ascendancy. And it has lent an impetus to the onward march of the cause. It has espoused with which the combined achievements of its co-religionists in the West have failed to rival. So this paragraph 16 stands in all 124 paragraphs of Advent of Divine Justice alone, in that sense that it is the unique paragraph that specifically describes the sufferings, trials, and tribulations of the early American Baha'i community. So paragraph 16. And so that's why, as we've been going through Advent to Divine Justice, I felt it a good time to segue into American the Most Great Peace, because in that pivotal document covering 38 paragraphs, as opposed to 124 of Advent, in those 38 paragraphs, the beloved guardian from, I believe, paragraph 16 through 38, puts the whole history from 1893, when the first call of the faith was announced by Reverend Jessup in America, so 1893, all the way to 1933, that 40-year period of time. What he does, he says there's 4 periods in the history of the cause. 4 periods. So we're going to be exploring that. And then the 5th one goes from 1933 to 1937, which is now going all the way up to the first 7-year plan. And then 1938 is Advent of Divine Justice was written. Okay. So, but the first 4 periods specifically outlined is in America and the Most Great Peace. And we're going to be exploring that in much greater detail in America and the Most Great Peace. So that's why we're doing what we're doing as studying America and the Most Great Peace. Just this was a brief recap. So let us get into our next session of America and the Most Great Peace. And we are on part 3 of, let me make sure everyone sees my screen, share screen. There we go, part 3. So in our last session we were together, we covered paragraphs 1 through 8. Okay, paragraphs 1 through 8 of America and the Most Great Peace. Today we'll be exploring paragraphs 9 through 15. Okay, so paragraphs 9 through 15. And let me full size it so you can see, because some of these paragraphs are long and the words get smaller. So I'll read the first one because there's many words and it gets tiring on the eye. Okay, so this is paragraph 9 of America and the Most Great Peace. This is a world order letter written in 1933. Okay, paragraph 9. Little wonder that from the same unerring pen there should have flowed, after Abdu'l-Baha's memorable visit to the West, these often quoted words, the significance of which it would be impossible for me to overrate. The continent of America, he announced in a tablet unveiling his divine plan to the believers residing in the northeastern states of the American Republic, is in the eyes of the one true God, the land wherein the splendors of his light shall be revealed, where the mysteries of his faith shall be unveiled, where the righteous will abide and the free assemble. May this American democracy, he himself, while in America, was heard to remark, be the first nation to establish the foundation of international agreement. May it be the first nation to proclaim the unity of mankind. May it be the first to unfurl the standard of the Most Great Peace. The American people are indeed worthy of being the first to build the tabernacle of the Great Peace and proclaim the oneness of mankind. May America become the distributing center of spiritual enlightenment, and all the world receive this heavenly blessing. For America has developed powers and capacities greater and more wonderful than other nations. May the inhabitants of this country become like angels of heaven, with faces turned continually toward God. May all of them become servants of the omnipotent one. May they rise from their present material attainments to such a height that heavenly illumination may stream from this center to all the peoples of the world. This American nation is equipped and empowered to accomplish that which will adorn the pages of history, to become the envy of the world and be blessed in both the East and the West for the triumph of its people. The American continent gives signs and evidences of very great advancement. Its future is even more promising, for its influence and illumination are far-reaching. It will lead all nations spiritually. Suresh John, carry on, please. Thank you.
Would it seem extravagant in the light of so sublime an utterance to expect that in the midst of so enviable a region of the earth, and out of the agony and wreckage of an unprecedented crisis, there should burst forth a spiritual renaissance, which as it propagates itself through the instrumentality of the American believers who rehabilitate the fortunes of a decadent age? It was Abdu'l-Baha himself, his most intimate associates testify, who on more than one occasion intimated that the establishment of his father's faith in the North American continent ranked as the most outstanding among the threefold aims, which as he conceived it, constituted the principal objective of his ministry. It was he who in the heyday of his life, and almost immediately after his father's ascension, conceived the idea of inaugurating his mission by enlisting the inhabitants of so promising a country under the banner of Baha'u'llah. He it was who in his unerring wisdom, and out of the abundance of his heart, chose to bestow on his favored disciples, to the very last day of his life, the tokens of his unfailing solicitude, and to overwhelm them with the marks of his special favor. It was he who in his declining years, as soon as delivered from the shackles of a long and cruel incarceration, decided to visit the land which had remained for so many years the object of his infinite care and love. It was he who, through the power of his presence and the charm of his utterance, infused into the entire body of his followers, those sentiments and principles which could alone sustain them amidst the trials which the very prosecution of their task would inevitably engender. Was he not, through the several functions which he exercised, whilst he dwelt amongst them, whether in the laying of the cornerstone of their house of worship, or in their feast which he offered them, and at which he chose to serve them in person, or in the emphasis which he on a more solemn occasion placed on the implications of his spiritual station, was he not thereby deliberately bequeathing to them all the essentials of that spiritual heritage, which he knew they would ably safeguard and by their deeds continually enrich? And finally, who can doubt that in the divine plan, which in the evening of his life he unveiled to their eyes, he was investing them with that spiritual primacy on which they could rely in their fulfillment of their high destiny?
Beautifully read, Suresh John. So this is a very powerful paragraph addressing Abdu'l-Baha and his and talking about his threefold aims. And we're going to be finding out what those threefold aims of Abdu'l-Baha were. And here, the beloved guardian outlines one of them, and that was his visit to America. And so that was one of his threefold aims, was to visit America and proclaim the message of his beloved father, His Holiness Baha'u'llah in America. Okay, if you kind.
Oops. Myself?
Go for it, Scott.
Okay. O ye apostles of Baha'u'llah, he thus addresses them in one of his tablets. May my life be a sacrifice for you. Behold the portals which Baha'u'llah has opened before you. Consider how exalted and lofty is that station you are destined to attain. How unique the favors with which you have been endowed. My thoughts, he tells them in another message, are turned towards you, and my heart leaps within me at your mention. Could you know how my soul glows with your love, so great a happiness which would flood your hearts as to cause you to become enamored with each other. The full measure of your success, he declares in another tablet, is as yet unrevealed, its significance still unapprehended. Ere long you will, with your own eyes, witness how brilliantly every one of you, even as a shining star, will radiate in the firmament of your country the light of divine guidance and will bestow upon its people the glory of an everlasting life. The range of your future achievements, he once more affirms, still remains undisclosed. I fervently hope that in the near future, the whole earth may be stirred and shaken by the results of your achievements. The Almighty, he assures them, will no doubt grant you the help of his grace, will invest you with the tokens of his might, and will endue your souls with the sustaining power of his Holy Spirit. Be not concerned, he admonishes them, with the smallness of your numbers, neither be oppressed by the multitude of an unbelieving world. Exert yourselves. Your mission is unspeakably glorious. Should success crown your enterprise, America will assuredly evolve into a center from which waves of spiritual power will emanate, and the throne of the kingdom of God will,
in the plenitude.
Hello, Scott. I think your sound went out.
it's saying your internet connection is unstable. I apologize. I don't know where I stopped.
So we said, and the throne of the kingdom of God will, in the plenitude of its majesty and glory, be firmly established. Beautifully read, dear Scott. Thank you so much. So this was the beloved garden. He's quoting from not only tablets of the divine plan, he's also quoting from other tablets of Abdul Baha and addressing the destiny of America, encouraging the early American Baha'i community to take on their task, to take on their spiritual birthright, and to not only to pioneer, but to raise the call of Baha'u'llah. So this is, and it's one call after another. He says, America will assuredly evolve into a center from which waves of spiritual power will emanate. What an awesome imagery is that? And it's just wave after wave of spiritual power pouring out into the world. So we go on. All of these paragraphs, we're going to dissect them more. So, but we're going through them a little faster, but we want to get through them. Shamim John, are you there? Maybe not. Sandra, could you kindly read?
It's too small.
Okay, excellent. No worries. How about you, Linda? Is it too small for you?
Let me see if I can read it. The hope which Abdul Baha cherishes for you, he thus urges them, is that the same success which has attended your efforts in America may crown your endeavors in other parts of the world, that through you the frame of the cause of God may be diffused throughout the East and the West, and the advent of the kingdom of the Lord of hosts be proclaimed in all the 5 continents of the globe. Thus far ye have been untiring in your labors. Let your exertions henceforth increase 1,000-fold. Summon the people in these countries, capitals, islands, assemblies, and churches to enter the Abha kingdom. The scope of your exertions must needs be extended. The wider its range, the more striking will be the evidences of divine assistance. Oh, that I could travel, even though on foot and in the utmost poverty, to these regions, and raising the call of Ya Baha'u'llah in cities, villages, mountains, deserts, and oceans, promote the divine teachings. This, alas, I cannot do. How intensely I deplore it. Please, God, ye may achieve it. And finally, as if to crown all his previous utterances in this solemn affirmation, embodying his vision of America's spiritual destiny. Quote, the moment this divine message is carried forward by the American believers from the shores of America and is propagated through the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, and of Australasia, and as far as the islands of the Pacific, this community will find itself securely established upon the throne of an everlasting dominion. Then will all the peoples of the world witness that this community is spiritually illumined and divinely guided. Then will the whole earth resound with the praises of its majesty and greatness. Unquote.
Excellently read. Thank you, dear Linda. This is one of my most favorite paragraphs in America, the Most Great Peace. So awesome is this paragraph. And thank you, Linda, for reading it. So I just wanted to recap this one line starting here. So the beloved guardian is saying, praising this early American Baha'i community. Remember, this is written in 1933. And he's praising them. And he's saying, thus far, ye have been untiring in your labors. They've been working hard. They've been doing such a great job, untiring. But then the sign of God on earth, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi, what does he say? He says, let your exertions henceforth increase 1,000-fold. 1,000-fold. This is incredible. Imagine our supreme body writing to your assembly. You've been working tirelessly, but now you got to go 1,000-fold more. This is what the beloved guardian is writing to this American Baha'i community and saying, you've been working tirelessly. And now you've got to go 1,000-fold more and summon the people in these countries, capitals, islands, assemblies, and churches to enter the Abha kingdom. So he's saying, now take it to the complete next level. The scope of your exertions must needs be extended. The wider its range, the more striking will it be the evidences of divine assistance. And then he quotes this incredible extract from Abdul Baha from Tablets of Divine Plan. Oh, that I could travel even though on foot and in the utmost poverty to these regions, and raising the call of Ya Baha'u'llah in cities, villages, mountains, deserts, and oceans, promote the divine teachings. This, alas, I cannot do. How intensely I deplore it. Please, God, ye may achieve it. So this is the beloved guardian placing these extracts from Tablets of the Divine Plan in here, not only to inspire the friends to go to greater and greater and greater heights of service, sacrifice, and teaching, but also to encourage the friends now to go to increase their level of sacrifice 1,000-fold in this paragraph, the beloved guardians calling upon them. Let us go to our next paragraph, but all of these will be, as I said, dissected even further. Okay, there we go. Paragraph 13. This is a shorter one, so let me see who was on the list that we didn't get to. Let's go back. John, could you read this one for us?
Sure, absolutely, I can.
Go for it.
Let me get my video on here. It is the light of these above quoted words of Abdul Baha that every thoughtful and conscientious believer should ponder the significance of this momentous utterance of Baha'u'llah. In the East, the light of his revelation hath broken. In the West have appeared the signs of his dominion. Ponder this in your hearts, O people, and be not of those who have turned a deaf ear to the admonitions of him who is the Almighty, the All-Praised. Should they attempt to conceal its light on the continent, it will assuredly rear its head in the midmost heart of the ocean, and, raising its voice, proclaim, I am the life giver of the world.
So cool. So, dear friends, we've read earlier that the faith of God may originate in the countries in the East, but it is actually magnified in the countries of the West. So that was what we read last time in the first paragraphs of America, the Most Great Peace. So here in this paragraph 13, it says, in the East, the light of his revelation hath broken. But this is from his Baha'u'llah. It says, in the West have appeared the signs of his dominion. Dominion is his throne, right? So the revelation may have appeared there, but the signs of his revelation and his dominion is in the West. Ponder this in your hearts, O people, and be not of those who have turned a deaf ear to the admonitions of him who is the Almighty, the All-Praised. Should they attempt to conceal its light on the continent, it will assuredly rear its head in the midmost heart of the ocean. I love that. That is so cool. And raising its voice, proclaim, I am the life giver of the world. Trying to stamp out the revelation, it will continue to rear. It's the faith will continue to per se magnify itself. You can no matter what force tries to oppose it. And this is another somewhat lengthy paragraph. I'll read this one to protect your eyes, as they say. Okay. Dearly beloved friends. So now the beloved guardian is transitioning. So all those were coming from Abdul Baha, Baha'u'llah. Now the beloved guardian is transitioning, paragraph 14. Dearly beloved friends, can our eyes be so dim as to fail to recognize in the anguish and turmoil which, greater than in any other country and in a manner unprecedented in its history, are now afflicting the American nation, evidences of the beginnings of that spiritual renaissance which these pregnant words of Abdul Baha so clearly foreshadow? The throes and twinges of agony which the soul of a nation in travail is now beginning to experience abundantly proclaim it. Contrast the sad plight of the nations of the earth, and in particular this great republic of the West, with the rising fortunes of that handful of its citizens, whose mission, if they be faithful to their trust, is to heal its wounds, restore its confidence, and revive its shattered hopes. So this is the duty of the Baha'is, right here. If they be faithful to their trust, heal its wounds, restore its confidence, and revive its shattered hopes. Contrast the dreadful convulsions, the internecine conflicts, the petty disputes, the outworn controversies, the interminable revolutions that agitate the masses with the calm, new light of peace and of truth, which envelops, guides, and sustains those valiant inheritors of the law and love of Baha'u'llah. Compare the disintegrating institutions, the discredited statesmanship, the exploded theories, the appalling degradation, the follies and furies, the shifts, the shams and compromises that characterize the present age, with the steady consolidation, the holy discipline, the unity and cohesiveness, the assured conviction, the uncompromising loyalty, the heroic self-sacrifice that constitute the hallmark of these faithful stewards and harbingers of the golden age of the faith of Baha'u'llah. So here again, dear friends, this is one of the pivotal themes that is through many of the letters of the beloved guardian. And that theme is of disintegration and integration. So this is theme is brought out in this paragraph and contrasting the steady rise of this nascent Baha'i community in this paragraph, talking about if they be faithful, right? That was such a very important, right? If they be faithful to their trust. And then it outlines here what the duties of those who are faithful are. They are to heal its wounds, namely the greater American wounds of this country, restore its confidence, and revive its shattered hopes. And then the beloved guardian contrasts the aspect of integration with disintegration, and talking about the greater society and all the aspects of degradation, disintegration, the discredited statesmanship, exploded theories, the follies and the furies, the shifts, the shams and compromises that characterize this present age, namely decadent and amoral civilization that surrounds that little fledgling faith. And so he's contrasting the two and saying that this faith should be assured of conviction. This faith should be assured of conviction. And as Baha'is, we should be uncompromising in our loyalty. We should have this heroic self-sacrifice and constitute the hallmark of these faithful stewards and harbingers of the golden age of the faith of Baha'u'llah. So here in this paragraph, this is one of the paragraphs that the beloved guardian in American the Most Great Peace is contrasting these twin processes of integration and disintegration. Which letter? Pop quiz, dear friends, pop quiz. So which letter of the beloved guardian really highlights disintegration and integration? Does anyone know?
World Order of Baha'u'llah, I believe.
Shami, is that you, Shamim John?
Yes, my friend.
Okay, World Order of Baha'u'llah is comprised of 7 letters, okay? There's 7 letters in World Order of Baha'u'llah. The first one is namely called the World Order of Baha'u'llah. You're correct, it is a World Order letter, Shamim John. But which of the 7 letters is the one that really focuses on this specific subject of disintegration and integration? That is my question. Does anyone know? It's a hard question. So I go to the answer.
I have to pull up Ocean. I don't think I know off the top of my head.
Right? It's not every day we think about this kind of questions, but the answer comes in the last letter of the beloved guardian. And we haven't studied this one yet. It's Unfoldment of World Civilization. the Unfoldment of World Civilization. And so it was written in 1936, okay? So 1936, that one was written. So it was just before the launching of the first 7-year plan. And then coming up 1938, in December 25th, is Advent of Divine Justice. So that letter has an entire section talking about disintegration and talking about the collapse of Islam and the Caliphate, the Imamate, talking about the collapse of Christendom. And so it really is talking about the forces of disintegration. It talks about immorality, corruption, all and in the sense of disintegration in that Unfoldment of World Civilization, the last letter of the world order letters that Shaminjan was very astute and said that it was world order Baha'u'llah. It is the 7th one, but in that one, that's really where that topic comes up. But granted, this theme comes up throughout many of his letters. The principle, it comes up again in Advent of Divine Justice. Well, we already have hit on it once already, and it comes up in part 22. Right now we're in part 6, covering paragraph 16, but it comes up again in part 22. So whole section, which is in the latter sections of Advent of Divine Justice. It comes up obviously in Promised Day Is Come. It comes up in it's really a compilation of the letters of the Guardian, which is called Citadel of Faith. And so again, the beloved Guardian addresses that concept of integration versus disintegration. This is a very common theme. I was thinking, I'm a kind of strange person. I wanted to segue. I was a very strange person. I was sitting late at night thinking about all the common themes of the beloved Guardian's writings. And I was like, wow, this is one of the main themes that comes up again and again. Another one is obviously corruption, moral decay, and these. And then also tying all of the, per se, weapons. The moral transformation is another main theme in the writings of the Guardian, this transformation of character. But this one of these arc themes that comes across a majority of the writings is this concept of disintegration and integration. And this is also tied with the top, and we're going to be addressing this upcoming, the forces of darkness and the forces of light, which is really and a very interesting subject that we'll be discussing later in Advent to Divine Justice. So that was paragraph 14. A lot to say, as they say in that one. But let's move on. This is our last paragraph in this specific part. Let me get Suresh John to read that one. It's not too long. Go for it.
I quickly wanted to say where it talks about the destructive forces in the middle of that paragraph. It talks about internecine conflicts, and that means destructive to both sides. I just wanted to define it.
That's a spot-on observation. That's the definition of internecine conflicts, destructive to both sides. And all these definitions will be coming up when we start really getting into them, but you're absolutely right. Recently, I've been studying in much greater detail, and probably to the cringiness of my wife, I've been studying World War II history, but more in detail, really the history of the Holocaust, as well as all the details of not only Adolf Eichmann's execution of the final solution and how he even was captured and then his trial, because the entire period of World War II was really an internecine conflict. Anyone that was involved suffered great losses, and it was a tragedy of loss of life and liberty, and it was a tragedy all around. And so that was a great, thank you very much for defining that for us. Okay, go for it, Suresh John.
Small wonder that these prophetic words should have been revealed by Abdul Baha. The East, he assures us, hath verily been illumined with the light of the kingdom. Ere long will this same light shed a still greater illumination upon the West. Then will the hearts of its people be vivified through the potency of the teachings of God, and their souls be set aglow by the undying fire of his love. The prestige of the faith of God, he asserts, has immensely increased. Its greatness is now manifest. The day is approaching when it will have cast a tremendous tumult in men's hearts. Rejoice, therefore, O denizens of America. Rejoice with exceeding gladness.
Excellently read. Thank you, Sursha. So this is another awesome paragraph of the beloved guardian, and he's tying it with prophetic statements. So here, small wonder that these prophetic words should have been revealed by Abdul Baha. The East, he assures us, have verily been illumined with the light of the kingdom, and ere long will this same light shed a greater illumination upon the West. And then will the hearts of its people be vivified. Vivified means to come to life. So it is as though they were dead, but now this light that's radiating coming from the East is bringing them to life through the potency of the teachings of God, and their souls will be set aglow by the undying fire of his love. So where have we heard this term undying fire before, right? The undying fire of the sacred bush, you know, and on top of the Mount of Sinai, right? And talking about the Moses. So it's that prophetic voice of God, the voice of God, the teachings of our Lord, that same spirit that animated Moses and Christ, and in this day and age, Baha'u'llah, this prophetic voice of God through his teachings will revivify, bring and restore this continent, namely America. And the prestige of the faith of God, he asserts, has immensely increased. Its greatness is now manifest. The day is approaching when it will have cast a tremendous tumult in men's hearts. This paragraph, so awesome. This part right here, the day is approaching when it will have cast a tremendous tumult in men's hearts, makes me think of the where it says, till the limbs of men quake. You know, and so at this point to say the day is approaching when it will have cast a tremendous tumult in men's hearts. Rejoice, therefore, O denizens of America, and rejoice with exceeding gladness. So why should we rejoice? And that's my question to you all. Why should the denizens of America, the Baha'is of America, rejoice? So I'm going to turn that question before we get into the detailed study. Why should the Baha'is of America rejoice? Any thoughts before we move on? Scott, any thoughts? Alice, Sandra?
Because the West is destined to be even brighter than the East in terms of spiritual brightness.
That's you, Shamim John, right? Or is that
that was me.
That's Suresh John. Okay. Good observation. Yes, that is talking about the spiritual destiny of America. Okay, any other thoughts?
One of my thoughts has been that when Abdul Baha came to America in 1912, now this is just Alice's thought.
Oh, of course, go for Alice.
Is that I think he was looking for America to be in a more spiritual growth than what he found it. Because it was segregation. Baha'is were having meetings and they were segregated. And it also was against the law for white and black to meet together. So this is just my belief from the writings and what I've read. When he came to America, he was expecting it to be in a more spiritual maturity than it was in. And when he said for Baha'is not to have meetings separate, I think that was the first integration of white and black coming together to serve God. So there's a lot of spiritual growth that American has to come to. And then I also believe that we are at a spiritual height than we realize that we are at now. I think we are at a higher maturity than we really think we are.
Thank you, dear Alice. Great observations, great thoughts. And that observation and thought regarding His Holiness Abdul Baha and his expectation of coming to America and seeing where the friends were. We're going to be addressing all of that in the end of part 14 in paragraphs 52 around, in that section where we're going to be addressing race, racism, and Abdul Baha's how he takes it on in Advent of Divine Justice and his example, how he brought in Louis Gregory and the marriage of Louis Gregory, and all of those things. We're going to be addressing them in Advent of Divine Justice. So great insights, dear Alice. I look forward to having you as we get into that part. Why I brought this question up to each one of you regarding this. Rejoice, therefore, rejoice, O denizens of America, rejoice with exceeding gladness, is because here, the beloved guardian, he knows the gift, per se, is the station, the spiritual station of America, the birthright of America. He understands what has been gifted by Abdul Baha in the tablets of the divine plan. He understands that. So he's saying, rejoice. This is an incredible honor that has been bestowed upon the American Baha'i community. But when we get to paragraph 38 and paragraph 39, so don't suddenly think, hey, as they say, let's rest on our laurels. When we get to paragraph 38 and paragraph 39, you'll see the beloved guardian. Then he, as they say, he flips the script and he says, it's very interesting. So it's going to be very exciting when we get to that paragraph. So, but here the beloved guardian is saying, what an incredible honor, what an incredible station this has been bestowed upon the American Baha'i community. So major key points that we've now been addressing in these paragraphs 9 through 15. His Holiness Abdul Baha is praying that America will be the first nation to establish the foundation of international agreement and unfurl the standard of the Most Great Peace. And if you were with us in an earlier session, we saw His Holiness Abdul Baha unfurling that call when he was in San Francisco. When he was in Sacramento, he prayed that California would have this be the site for the first call for peace. And hence, San Francisco was the site for the first location for the peace conference that later on became the site for United Nations. And then it was established in New York. And we're going to see all of that. So we saw that earlier in our study of Advent of Divine Justice. He forecasts America will become the distributing center of the spiritual enlightenment and will lead all nations spiritually. This is such a cool line. I mean, America, the Most Great Peace is a letter that you all should study and study. Distributing center of the spiritual enlightenment and will lead all nations spiritually. We are a materialistic globalization power as America is, okay? Powerhouse. Products are produced here and distributed around the world. But imagine if United States of America would be a spiritual powerhouse and a spiritual distributor. So all the wonderful things of spiritual vitality and ideas and creativities are generated here and distributed around the world. How cool would that be? So this is what the beloved guardians say, that the destiny of America and he's being forecast. This is from Abdul Baha and the Beloved Guardian, saying, forecasting that America's destiny will become the spiritual enlightenment and distributing center, and will lead all nations spiritually. I think that's so cool. Establishment of the faith in America was the most outstanding of the three objectives of his ministry. So the beloved, His Holiness Abdul Baha had three principal objectives for his whole ministry. Can anyone name them off the top of your head?
Establish the faith in the West, set the stone start the temple in America. Those two.
So you got the first one, okay? The second one is technically not one of the three,
okay,
but you would think it would be. It was like, well, that makes sense, right? According to the Beloved Guardian, the Guardian actually outlines what these three are. And we're going to get into that, but you got the first one spot on. Okay, so that travels of Abdul Baha through the West, specifically America, okay, is the first one, okay? That travels of 239 days was according to the Beloved Guardian, that establishment of the faith in America was the most outstanding of his objectives of his ministry. And there's three primary objectives of the ministry of Abdul Baha. Okay, so Abdul Baha laid the cornerstone of the temple and infused into followers principles and sentiments which could sustain them through trials, explained his station as center of the covenant, and bequeathed the tablets of the divine plan. So dear Scott was absolutely spot on. These are different things that he did through his travels in America. And so these are, not only did he lay the cornerstone of the Mashal Asghar, that incredible temple, the mother temple of the West, he also infused into his followers the principles, the sentiments, which would sustain them through trials. And these trials, we're going to be exploring what some of these trials that this early American Baha'i community went through. And he gave thousands of talks in person, and these talks were recorded. It was in universities, it was in churches, and all of these talks were on myriad of different subjects, but also he was explaining who is Abdul Baha, because this was a common misunderstanding. And when we get into dispensation of Baha'u'llah later on, this is was a very common misperception that Abdul Baha was on the same station as a manifestation of God, namely on the same station as Christ, or the same station as Baha'u'llah, on the same station as these prophets of God. And so in the media, and namely the newspapers at that time, because they didn't have TV or anything like that, but namely in the media and print, they would print that Abdul Baha was, because obviously he was exuding such magnetism and such perfection, that they foresaw him as having the same qualities as a prophet of God. They didn't know his station. They didn't understand his station. And so they would write Abdul Baha, Persian prophet. And you can even go look up articles and you can see this is what they would write. So the beloved master Abdul Baha, he would go and he would per se correct them on who he was. He would say, I am the master. I am the servant of God. I am the master. I am the servant of God. My name is Abdul Baha. My title is Abdul Baha. So he would constantly be correcting and educating the friends on who is Abdul Baha. So that was a very important endeavor that was part of his travels to the West to educate the friends on his, per se, his station. And another important part was to bequeath the tablets of the divine plan. That was later on when he sent the tablets of the divine plan. He sent them from Palestine. So he encourages us to take the faith to all continents of the globe. This is in Tablets of the Divine Plan, to extend the scope of our exertions. This was the incredible paragraph where it says, you have been working tirelessly, but now you got to increase your service 1,000-fold. I love that. So that's the call of the beloved guardian in that paragraph. He says, you have been working tirelessly, and now you have to go and to work 1,000-fold harder. While the American nation is disintegrating, the followers of Baha'u'llah are exhibiting qualities of calm, discipline, unity, consolidation, cohesiveness, conviction, loyalty, and self-sacrifice. So all the institutions around them are collapsing. But here the beloved guardian is saying this new organism, namely this new flower, which is the faith of Baha'u'llah, the community of the most great name, sprouting in the West, this community is exhibiting these qualities of these calm, discipline, unity, consolidation, that they're having the qualities of being a Baha'i community, and to be able to withstand the onslaught of these tests that are going to be coming. And we're going to be addressing those. So this was just some of the major key points that through my observations of these paragraphs, you can see. Okay, now, as you can see, I really started breaking it down, Suresh John, all these definitions so you could see. So this is the paragraph 9 was the long paragraph at the beginning. Little wonder that from some, the same unerring pen there should have flowed after Abdul Baha's memorable visit to the West, these often quoted words. So now Abdul Baha is now addressing the station of America here. He announced in a tablet unveiling his divine plan to the believers in the northeastern states of America. It is in the eyes of the one true God, the land wherein the splendors of his light shall be revealed, where the mysteries of his faith shall be unveiled, where the righteous, who are the righteous? Righteous, the definition is here, virtuous, moral, good, just, upright, honorable, will abide and the free assemble. May this American democracy, he himself while in America was heard to remark, be the first nation to establish the foundation of international agreement. So all the ones in red, I'm going to have slides explaining what this tablet unveiling his divine plan, what the most great peace, what the oneness of mankind are. But we have read these extracts, so I wanted you just to see what am I focusing on and what we're going to be studying. So we're going to be looking at what is this tablets of the divine plan that in paragraph 9, the beloved guardian brings up. And may it be the first to unfurl the standard of the most great peace. What is the most great peace? And the American people are indeed worthy of being the first to build the tabernacle of the great peace and proclaim the oneness of mankind. So we're going to be looking at that too. So in America and the Most Great Peace, in paragraph 9, Abdul Baha prays that America will be the first nation to establish the foundation of international agreement and unfurl the standard of the most great peace. Abdul Baha forecasts America will become the distributing center of the spiritual enlightenment and will lead all nations spiritually. And this slide, you'll probably, if you remember from Advent to Divine Justice study, this was the slide right there, and it says, during his journeys in the United States, Abdul Baha visited Sacramento, the capital of California. It was about 120 kilometers northeast of San Francisco. And on the 26th of October, 1912, he gave that incredible talk on international peace at the Assembly Hall of Hotel Sacramento. And in that talk, he foretold the San Francisco conference by stating, Inasmuch as the Californians seem peace-loving and possessed of great worthiness and capacity, I hope that advocates of peace may daily increase among them until the whole population shall stand for that beneficent outcome. May the men of affairs in this democracy uphold the standard of international conciliation. Then may altruistic aims and thoughts radiate from this center toward all other regions of the earth. And may the glory of this accomplishment forever halo the history of this country. May the first flag of international peace be upraised in this state, and may the first illumination of reality shine gloriously upon this soil. May this center and capital become distinguished in all degrees of accomplishment for the virtues of humanity, and the possibilities of human advancement are boundless. So this was 1912, Abdul Baha visiting California. And this was in his talk when he visited Sacramento. He gave this talk and he prayed for that in this state of California would be the first site for that the flag of international peace may be upraised in it. And these are from his talk. It says, Persian teacher of world peace is here. And noted Persian teacher here pleads for world peace. So this was in 2 different newspapers. And as mentioned in our Advent to Divine Justice class, the Atlantic Charter was incorporated by reference into the Declaration of the United Nations on the 1st of January, 1942, and that was signed by 26 countries. This became the basis of the modern United Nations, and the final charter of the United Nations was discussed and accepted at the United Nations Conference. And where was that held? On International Organization, convened in San Francisco, 25th April 1945. So the first establishment of the Union of Nations for the establishment of peace happened in San Francisco, 1945. Same state that Abdul Baha prayed for, that it would become the state for the first establishment for bringing of the nations and countries together. So this San Francisco conference was attended by 50 countries from all parts of the world. And this United Nations Charter was unanimously signed 26th of June, promulgated 24th October 1945. And that was the cornerstone for the permanent seat of United Nations that eventually was laid in New York City in 1949. And this is the Declaration of the United Nations here. And you can see all the nations that were signed it, and those are 26 countries. So in this paragraph right here, the continent of America, he announced in a tablet unveiling his divine plan, right? So what is that? Tablet unveiling his divine plan. So this is from Abdul Baha, Tablets of the Divine Plan right here. Likewise, the continent of America is, in the eyes of the one true God, the land wherein the splendors of his light shall be revealed, where the mysteries of his faith shall be unveiled, the home of the righteous and the gathering place of the free. Therefore, every section thereof is blessed. How cool is that? Therefore, every section thereof is blessed. But because these 9 states have favored in faith and assurance, hence, through this precedence, they have obtained spiritual privilege. They must realize the value of this bounty because they have obtained such a favor, and in order to render thanksgiving for this most great bestowal, they must arise in the diffusion of divine fragrances. So it's not just, hey, you've received this bounty, you got to go start working. They must arise in the diffusion of divine fragrances. So that the blessed verse of the Quran, God is the light of heaven and earth. The similitude of his light is a niche in a wall, wherein a lamp is placed, and the lamp enclosed in a case of glass. The glass appears as if it were a shining star. It is lighted with the oil of a blessed tree, an olive neither of the east nor of the west. It wanteth little but that the oil thereof would give light, although no fire touched it. This is the light added unto light. God will direct unto his light whom he pleaseth. So, dear friends, this is in this extract coming from Tablets of the Divine Plan, talking about the spiritual station of America, that it is an incredible bounty and that we must realize the value of this bounty and this favor that have been bestowed upon us. But it's not just like, hey, we've got this bounty, that's great, and, let's celebrate. But here, Abdu'l-Baha says, you got to get to work. They must arise in the diffusion of divine fragrances. So this is the call upon the American Baha'i community, that you must get to work. And these were the young Baha'is right here on the right who unveiled these 14 tablets of the Divine Plan. Okay? This is Mary Maxwell. Does anyone know who Mary Maxwell is?
Rohia Khanum's mother.
You think it's Ri Khanum's mother. That is correct. Mary Maxwell.
Or maybe
It is actually, I believe it is. May Maxwell is the mother. Mary Maxwell is Ri Khanum. But excellent, good thinking and good insights.
Yeah,
it's a Maxwell. So you're right, dear Shamijan. So these are some of the characters here. So here you can see Mary Maxwell. Right here is Amatul Baha Ri Khanum, right there. So she was actually the youngest member. She was, I believe, 9 years old here during the unveiling of the tablets of the Divine Plan. And these are some of the other people. This is Catherine Elizabeth Norris over here. And, my chubby finger. She was an early American believer. And her mother, Elizabeth Norris, was Abdu'l-Baha's hostess on a number of occasions during his 1912 visit to America. And in 1937, she pioneered to Hawaii, where she served on the local spiritual assembly of Honolulu. And in 1957, she served on the first local spiritual assembly of Hilo, the Big Island. So even though some of these people just being in the presence of the unveiling of the tablets of the Divine Plan, they also, during their lifetime, rendered incredible services. Another incredible person is this Bahia Winkler. Bahia Randall Winkler was daughter of Harry and Ruth Randall. And they pioneered to South Africa in 1953 at the request of Shoghi Effendi, where she served on the National Spiritual Assembly of South and West Africa. So this is when they had the countries together. In 1968, she was appointed to the First Continental Board of Counselors, on which she served for 17 years. So these are incredible servants and loved ones that even at that young age, they had the privilege to unveil the tablets of the Divine Plan. As the years of Abdu'l-Baha's ministry were drawing to a close with World War I, and as a precursor to his will and testament, he sent the tablets of the Divine Plan to the Baha'is of the West, and 9 young girls were chosen to draw aside the curtains covering the original handwritten tablets of Abdu'l-Baha. Mary Maxwell and her best childhood friend, Elizabeth Corstein of Montreal, were privileged to unveil the first and second of these tablets for Canada in a tableau vivant at the Hotel McAlpin in New York on the 29th of April, 1919. It was shortly before Mary's 9th birthday and the end of the heroic age of the faith of Baha'u'llah. So right before she turned 9, Ruhi Khanum turned 9. She unveiled the tablets of the divine plan. What an incredible life she had, Ruhi Khanum. That is another great life to study, how she was in the Maxwell family of all things, and then in the family of the beloved guardian, and what a life. So this is from in the book, The Unveiling of the Divine Plan. And now I deem it a great joy to call on the daughter of Abdul Baha, Mary Maxwell, to rise and come forward to unveil the great spiritual charter of the Dominion of Canada. Wow. So she was at that age of late 8 years old, went and unveiled that monumental tablet. So let us now get into a quick synopsis of paragraph 10. So would it seem extravagant in the light of so sublime an utterance to expect that in the midst of so enviable a region of the earth, and I've seen so many wonderful friends from around the world, because I've given talks in different places and conferences and everything, and they're truly envious of the spiritual station of America. It's quite humbling as an American Baha'i in this continent to see the station that America has. But it's also an incredible duty, and that we have to take up. We can't just but this enviable region of the earth, and out of the agony and wreckage of an unprecedented crisis, there should burst forth a spiritual renaissance. That is a cool terminology. Spiritual renaissance, which, as it propagates itself through the instrumentality of the American believers, will rehabilitate the fortunes of a decadent age. And what is this spiritual renaissance? What are they talking about? Any thoughts? What is the beloved guardian talking about? This spiritual renaissance of this decadent age that is emerging in this American community. What is he talking about? Scott, any thoughts?
Yeah, I not really. I know at this time in 38, we were trying to, not expand. We wanted to actually do one of these things we said recently, America first, or we didn't want to, we wanted, I don't know if that certainly isn't a spiritual renaissance, but I don't know that that's what we were doing in the 30s.
So this is 33. 1933 was written, okay. But right. But the spiritual renaissance it's addressing here is not in the sense of 1933. It's talking about in the sense of when Abdul Baha came and was literally renaissancing the whole community and bringing that community back and to life. And then also that spiritual renaissance even happened after Abdul Baha's visit. And so that what happened was because it went through multiple phases of increase, decline, and so it was going through periods of tests and turmoils, defections and trials, and so it was going through per se phases of attack and torment within and without the faith, the community. And so that was, and when it's talked about spiritual renaissance, that new birth, that new change, it was the capacities of the Baha'is themselves were understanding what this institution, the local spiritual assembly was, because this was really a new thing. It was emerging. So now that capacity was, the beloved guardian was now injecting understanding of what this new organism per se is, the local spiritual assembly, that institution that Baha'u'llah created in Kitab Ahdas. So That is an incredible new life that was coming into being. End of this great paragraph 10 in American the Most Great Peace. It says right here, it was Abdul Baha himself, his most intimate associates testify, who on more than one occasion intimated that the establishment of his father's faith in the North American continent ranked as the most outstanding among the threefold aims, which, as he conceived it, constituted the principal objective of his ministry. So he had threefold aims in his entire ministry. And God, Abdul Baha did some incredible things through his entire ministry. But if you, the Beloved Guardian summarizes these threefold aims and writes exactly what they are. And so we're going to get to that. So this is more on paragraph 10. And it was he. So this is all about Abdul Baha, who in his heyday of his life and almost immediately after his father's ascension, conceived the idea of inaugurating his mission by enlisting the inhabitants of so promising a country under the banner of Baha'u'llah. It was he who in his unerring wisdom and out of the abundance of his heart chose to bestow on his favorite disciples the very last day of his life, the tokens of his unfailing solicitude. So this is one thing after, all of these are one thing after another of what Abdul Baha did during his ministry, one thing after another. As soon as delivered from the shackles of a long and cruel incarceration, what did he do? He decided to visit the land which had remained for so many years the object of his infinite care and love. So one thing after another during the ministry of Abdul Baha. What did he do? Then, was he not, through the several functions which he exercised whilst he dwelt amongst them, whether in the laying of the cornerstone of their house of worship, or in the feast which he offered them, and at which he chose to serve them in person, or in the emphasis which he, on a more solemn occasion, placed on the implications of his spiritual stations? Each one of these is one of the many different things that we could say that was one of the incredible things that Abdul Baha did during his ministry. But right here, right, very clear in paragraph 10, says it was ranked as the most outstanding among his threefold aims, was it constituted as the principal objective of his ministry, was it was Abdul Baha himself who on more than one occasion intimated that the establishment of his father's faith in North America. So the establishment of the faith of Baha'u'llah in North America was the greatest achievement and goal and aim of Abdul Baha's ministry. So now we're getting into it. In paragraph 10, the Beloved Guardian states that Abdul Baha's establishment of the faith in America was the most outstanding of the three objectives of his ministry. And this is a map of his travels. I found this cool map. I thought it was pretty cool. Abdul Baha laid the cornerstone of the temple, infused into followers principles and sentiments which could sustain them through trials. He explained his station as a center of the covenant. And as mentioned, he bequeathed the tablets of the divine plan. So this is all the different stops on his journey, 239 days. And he, as we all know, he went into Canada and stopped for 10 days in Canada. And that it was really because of the power of the Maxwells, the spiritual power of the Maxwells attracted Abdul Baha there. So this threefold aims that is mentioned in paragraph 10 of American the Most Great Peace. Chief objectives of Abdul Baha's ministry. And we find this from a letter written on behalf of the Beloved Guardian to the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States and Canada December 14th, 1933. So this, as we all know, this was Rizwan 1933. So very shortly after December 14th, 1933, the Guardian had to clarify what these threefold aims were. So this is in clarification. He says, as to the three aims, which Shoghi Effendi, as stated in his America and the Most Great Peace, to have been chief objectives of Abdul-Baha's ministry, it should be pointed out that the first was the establishment of the cause in America. The erection of the Baha'i temple in Ishrabad and the building on Mount Carmel of a mausoleum marking the resting place of the Bab were the two remaining ones. So there you go. The three: establishment of the cause of Baha'u'llah in America by Abdul-Baha. The second one is the erection of the Baha'i temple in Ishrabad. And the third one is the building on Mount Carmel of a mausoleum marking the resting place of the Bab. So these are the three chief objectives during the ministry of Abdul-Baha. So between April and December 1912, Abdul-Baha traveled and taught across North America. So this was his number one of his threefold aims. This is a drawing of the house of worship in Ishrabad, Turkmenistan. The building was dedicated in 1902 and completed in 1907. And the external ornamentation was completed in 1919. And during our Advent of Divine Justice class, we've gone much more into detail on the, not only on complete construction of the temple and aftermath of what happened to the Baha'i community of Ishrabad, the persecution, as well as the eventual destruction of the temple due to earthquake and eventually raising it to the ground due to, it was prior due to persecution of the Ishrabad community. So, but this temple was erected and really was a catalyst for the spiritual growth of the community of Ishrabad. It was an incredible contribution that this temple was created. The third aim was talking about the mausoleum for the Blessed Bab. In 1891, Baha'u'llah traveled to Mount Carmel, where he pointed out to Abdul-Baha the spot where the shrine of the Bab was to be erected. Abdul-Baha completed a 6-room masonry structure in 1907. And on March 21st, 1909, Abdul-Baha interred the remains of the Bab in the shrine. And in 1944, the beloved Guardian Shoghi Effendi approved William Sutherland Maxwell's design of the shrine, and the structure was completed in September 1953. And here is His Holiness Abdul-Baha, May 1st, 1912. This is where he was laying the cornerstone of the Baha'i House of Worship, Mashallah Asghar, Mother Temple of the West. And I'm sure many of you have visited that great temple. This is the cornerstone was brought onto the building site with great difficulty by Mrs. Nettie Tobin. And over here, this is Lua Getzinger. This is another great soul that I encourage you all to read her life, her account, Mother Teacher of the West. So that was a brief synopsis, dear friends, of paragraph 10. So covering some of the highlights in paragraph 10. Then, how exciting, paragraph 11. How does the beloved Master address us? O ye apostles of Baha'u'llah. This is coming Tablets of the Divine Plan. O ye apostles of Baha'u'llah. May my life be sacrificed for you. Behold the portals which Baha'u'llah hath opened before you. Consider how exalted and lofty is the station you are destined to attain. He says, how unique the favors with which you have been endowed. My thoughts, he tells them in another passage, are turned towards you. My heart leaps within me at your mention. Could ye know how my soul glows with your love, so great a happiness would flood your hearts as to cause you to become enamored with each other. So this is here Abdul Baha addressing America and the American Baha'i community and giving them such a love, and giving also in the first line, stating their station, apostles of Baha'u'llah. And then also pouring out glorifications on this community. And then, very importantly, dear friends, again, the beloved guardian addresses this very important thing that is also in paragraph 16 of Advent to Divine Justice. So I'm tying it again to Advent, that we really is our master study that we're doing. But I'm tying this paragraph 11 to Advent. And this is how he says, be not concerned, he admonishes them in paragraph 11 of American, the Most Great Peace, with the smallness of your numbers. Neither be oppressed by the multitude of an unbelieving world. If you recall in paragraph 16 of Advent, which we looked at when we started the class, that was one of the predominant prevailing problems of the early American Baha'i community, smallness of numbers, a community negligible in size. So he says, do not be concerned with the smallness of your numbers, neither be oppressed by the multitude of an unbelieving world. But then with the call comes, exert yourselves. Your mission is unspeakably glorious. And then he says, should success crown your enterprise, what will happen? America will assuredly evolve into a center from which waves of spiritual power will emanate. And the throne of the kingdom of God will, in the plenitude of its majesty and glory, be firmly established. So here, the end of paragraph 11, the beloved guardian is stating very categorically, very clearly, that do not, dear friends, worry or ponder and on the aspect of smallness of numbers, or be worried or troubled by the multitudes of an unbelieving world. But the beloved guardian says, exert yourselves, and says your mission is unspeakably glorious. Okay. And in paragraph 11, the beloved guardian quotes from Abdul Baha, The Establishment of the Faith in America. And Abdul Baha laid the cornerstone of the temple, infused into followers the principles and sentiments which could sustain them through trials, explained his station as the center of the covenant, and bequeathed the tablets of the divine plan. So, let me check my time, dear friends. We're doing good. Okay. How's everyone doing? Good? Excellent. Excellent. I love it. Okay. So this is paragraph 12. And this is now, we're getting into, if you recall from paragraph 12, this was a paragraph where, oh, I love this paragraph. Now the beloved guardian he's again still quoting from Tablets of the Divine Plan. And he is now saying, he's calling upon them. He's urging his American compatriots to go and reach higher and higher levels of sacrifice. And this is a paragraph that just jumps and gives me such happiness and per se loving humor, because he says here, thus far you have been untiring in your labors. Untiring. They've been killing themselves, these poor early American Bahá'ís. But then, what does he say? Let your exertions henceforth increase 1,000-fold. Imagine you reading this for the first time. America, the Most Great Peace, has just come to you 1933. And now the Guardian's saying, you've been working so hard, but you got to work 1,000-fold more hard. And that's the reality. The Guardian's expectations, the need of the cause, the pressing urgency of the time. And then he ties it directly with the tablets of the divine plan and the call of Abdul Baha. He says, oh, that I could travel even though on foot and in the utmost poverty to these regions. This was such a moving extract of Abdul Baha. And raising the call of Ya Baha'u'llah upon cities, villages, and mountains, deserts, and oceans, promote the divine teachings. This, alas, I cannot do. How intensely I deplore it. Please God, ye may achieve it. Abdul Baha would have even traveled to China. I don't know if you've read the extracts on that. He wanted to travel to China. He wanted to travel to India, but his body was so tired and so unwell. He was so unwell after his travels throughout Europe and America that he needed a respite. He needed to rest in Egypt after his travels. He was just so exhausted. And so he needed even to go back to Palestine. But God, anywhere and everywhere he went, the covenant breakers were after him. And so he was literally trying to protect it by his loved ones anywhere he went. But he managed to get a bit of a respite after his travels through Europe and America in Egypt. But his heart was longing to travel and promote the faith. And he even wanted to go to China and India. And we can read that extract in Abdul Baha in Egypt. In paragraph 12, Abdul Baha encourages us to take the faith to all continents of the globe, to extend the scope of our exertions. So this is here the beloved Guardian in America, the Most Great Peace, is quoting tablets of the divine plan to encourage the friends to have that level of pioneering. Remember what he's doing. Remember what the beloved Guardian is doing. This is 1933. He's setting the stage. He's setting the stage for 1937. He's setting the stage for his first 7-year plan, where he's calling upon the believers to go pioneering. And remember, the second in the second part of the first 7-year plan, the goal was to go to all the countries in South America, Latin America, and pioneer and really promulgate the faith. So he's setting the stage. He's quoting from tablets of the divine plan to, per se, bring that forth and keep the attention on the focus of Abdul Baha and tablets of the divine plan, to go forth, to pioneer. Then paragraph 13. Now this is a synoptic paragraph. He's saying, in the light of these above quoted words of Abdul Baha, that every thoughtful and conscientious believer should ponder the significance of this momentous utterance. Now he's quoting Baha'u'llah. So he's quoted prior Abdul Baha, tablets of the divine plan. Now he's quoting Baha'u'llah. And this is a very powerful and extract from Baha'u'llah. And he's also quoted this kind of extract prior in America, the Most Great Peace, in the first paragraphs in 1 through 8. And this is what he says. He says, in the East, the light of his revelation have broken, but in the West, it have appeared the signs of his dominion. It says, ponder this in your hearts, O people, and be not of those who have turned a deaf ear to the admonitions of him who is the Almighty, the All-Praised. So the light might have appeared in the East, but his kingdom, his dominion, his throne is now going to be placed in the West. And he says, ponder it, dear friends, but do not turn a deaf ear to my admonitions. Admonitions are my warnings, cautions. So he says, do not turn a deaf ear to this. All right. So in paragraph 13, Abdul Baha asks us to ponder the utterance of Baha'u'llah. In the East, the light of his revelation have broken, but in the West have appeared the signs of his dominion. Now going to paragraph 14. If I'm going too fast or too slow or you're any questions, this is your class, dear friends. I'm cool. Just you know, say, hey, Ehsan, I have a question or I have a thought. Go ahead. Feel free, okay? But I can always talk. That's one thing. Okay, so we'll carry on. Now, this is another paragraph. Now we've addressed paragraphs coming from Tablets of Divine Plan. In paragraph 13 was an extract coming from Baha'u'llah, talking about the faith emerging in the East and then flowering per se in the West. Now, this is a transitionary paragraph, paragraph 14. The beloved guardian, paragraph 14 says, now, anytime he suddenly starts opens, dearly beloved friends, it's a transitionary paragraph. He's now said, he's finished his thought. Now he's saying, okay, now let's get into another thought. Dearly beloved friends, can our eyes be so dim as to fail to recognize in the anguish and turmoil, which greater than in any other country and in a manner unprecedented in its history are now afflicting the American nation, evidences of the beginnings of that spiritual renaissance, which these pregnant words of Abdul Baha so clearly foreshadow. So this is several things he immediately says in this first question. This is a long question. In this one question, one thing that jumps out is, can your eyes not recognize this anguish, this turmoil that this country is going through? And he also says that this country is being afflicted by greater sufferings, greater problems, greater turmoils than any other country, and in a manner unprecedented in its history. So America is going through something on a much greater level of suffering and turmoil than any other country. Now, what does suffering, what does turmoil do? What do tests and tribulations do? Their purification. And this is literally like the fires of a cauldron of testing, and it creates the outcome, a better outcome. It creates maturation, these tests and tribulations. So this country is going through sufferings, tribulations, and trials. Specifically, the Guardian says, anguishes and turmoils, which are greater than in any other country, and in a manner unprecedented in its history. And evidences of the beginnings of that spiritual renaissance, which these pregnant words of Abdul Baha so clearly foreshadow. It goes on, he says, the throes and twinges of agony, which the soul of a nation in travail is now beginning to experience, abundantly proclaim it. Contrast the sad plight of the nations of the earth, and in particular, this great republic of the West, with the rising fortunes of that handful of citizens. And this is talking about the American Baha'i community, handful of citizens, whose mission, if they be faithful, again, this is the second time it's this, if they be faithful to their trust. What is the if they be faithful? What do they have to do? They have to heal its wounds. Heal whose wounds? What wounds? The wounds of the greater society. And what wound would that be? What major, gaping, bleeding wound has America suffered for 400 years? Namely, racism is one of the gaping wounds in this country that is just open, and it's a great word for it. It is stench-filled, and it's become it's almost cancerous growth of this disease of racism has taken hold of not only the beloved guardian in Advent to Divine Justice, he says the American Baha'i community is afflicted by it, but the greater society is at large is afflicted by racism. So he says here that the Baha'is themselves needs to heal its wounds. And racism is just one of them. We need to, as the American Baha'i community, we need to restore its confidence and revive its shattered hopes. Restore its confidence in what? Do we have confidence in our politicians? Do we have confidence in the government? Do we have confidence in the laws and in? So what? These are all the beloved guardian says we need to restore its confidence. This is what it's saying. So these are. Even people don't even have confidence in their doctors taking the medicines, you know? We have to restore the confidence. It's so these are things that is the beloved guardian saying. And then contrasting. This is again, we talked about contrasting. This new emerging little nascent community, which is namely integration, and contrasting that with the processes of disintegration. So contrast the dreadful convulsions, as the dear Surush John defined internecine, great slaughter, mutually destructive. So both of them are getting destroyed, internecine, conflicts, the petty disputes, the outworn controversies, the interminable revolutions. It's the endless, ceaseless, the interminable revolutions that agitate the masses with this calm, new light of peace and of truth, which envelopes, guides, sustains those valiant inheritors of the law and love of Baha'u'llah. Are you valiant? This is the quality that the guardian is calling upon us, to be a valiant inheritor of the law and love of Baha'u'llah. How are you being valiant? And what are you doing to be valiant? So this is the questions that we should be asking ourselves. And then here the beloved guardian in paragraph 14 said we should compare our faith as an American Baha'i community to the disintegration, namely the disintegrating institutions, the discredited statesmanship, the exploded theories, the appalling degradation. God, we could just look into the last 5 years of the collapse of all of these bubbles of greed, the materialism, you name it. And we see how these institutions that, God, everyone thought were such scions of wealth and things that people should look up to, and how they all collapsed because of greed of society. And I remember I was watching, I think it was Bloomberg, I think in 2008 or something, and it was praising, glorifying these WorldCom and praising these what was the Enron? Oh, it was praising Enron, because I live in Houston of all cities, and there's a great building here that is Enron's world headquarters, and it was praising Enron and saying you should invest in Enron. It's an incredible. And I was listening, and and I was like, there's something not right. Why would the stock be going like logarithmic? It's literally going on an exponential incline. There's something not adding up, that I didn't have time to study it at that level, but there wasn't something right. But all the Bloombergs and the CNBCs and these financial news networks were saying these great places where you should pour your capital. And very shortly after, it was an economic, really almost world collapse of these bubbles that because of humanity's greed. And this is, that was just one case and example in my lifetime. And I'm sure in many of the friends' lifetimes, you've seen other examples of how these institutions have failed and been discredited by not only materialism, but other examples of that was just one example of greed, true greed, and how the profiteering. I mean, I don't know how much you've seen of this. They call it the smartest men in the room, the smartest guys in the room. There's movies on the Enron scandal and how actually some of them got away and took hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's and so many thousands of people lost their jobs, lost their savings, lost their pensions, and lost their livelihood. And this is just one company, but there's so many examples of institutions that have done this kind of activity because of greed. But these are, as mentioned, the beloved guardian, these are the appalling degradation. This is degradation. It's the spiritual degeneracy that is enveloping the society at large. So the beloved, in paragraph 14, the guardian is contrasting the qualities of the Baha'i community versus the qualities that the greater society is exhibiting. And then he says that the Baha'i community, the American Baha'i community, should stand out and be characterized by what? The steady consolidation by holy discipline. Oh, my chubby finger again. Sorry. The holy discipline, this unity and cohesiveness, assured conviction, uncompromising loyalty, and heroic self-sacrifice. And these should be the qualities that constitute the hallmark of these faithful stewards and harbingers of the golden age of the faith of Baha'u'llah. So these are the qualities in the end of paragraph 14 that should characterize you, dear friends, which are the stewards and harbingers. Harbinger is one who is a forerunner, someone that is bringing about something, right? The Blessed Bab was a harbinger of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. He was the one that was the forerunner. So you, as in this day and age, is a harbinger of the golden age of the faith of Baha'u'llah, because we are in the formative age. And so your activities are so monumental, so pivotal, and so important to bring about this golden age of Baha'u'llah. And we should all be faithful stewards. And we should be working, dedicating our lives to, but also working in unity and with loyalty, heroic self-sacrifice, etc., etc. So these are the qualities. One of them is calm. It's so easy to overlook the first one, but calm is incredibly important, because if you look at that in monumental letter called A Promised Day is Come. Promised Day is Come. In the opening of Promised Day is Come, the beloved guardian lays it home in the first few paragraphs, really first few pages. He lays it home. He says a tempest unprecedented in its force is pretty much raging, and this tempest unrestrained is namely this force of disintegration. And this force of disintegration is a tempest unrestrained. And so he's saying, but he says he calls upon this Baha'i community to be calm. Says, be cool, be collected, and keep your mind focused. If you're looking to the left and to the right at all the devastation and destruction, you'll get troubled. And your heart will become tremulous. In fact, if you're looking to the left and right about all the devastation and chaos around, you could also lose your certitude. You could lose that certitude and faith. So the beloved guardian says, be calm. Scott, do you have a hand?
Yes, where there are not large Baha'i communities, there are Baha'is who, many of their friends, many of their families are not Baha'is, don't have these the knowledge of these writings. And it's easy. It has been, I'll say for myself, maybe for others, I won't speak for others, but it can, if you're in a rural area, it can be very easy to pick up. If you don't spend time like this, looking at something really in depth, it's very easy to, if you watch TV, to fall not fall by the wayside, but catch the negativity that's out there, and have not be calm. And so it's, I really appreciate all the different things that you've put together, especially in Crimson Academy and like in Clearwater community. I really appreciate their time putting these things together also. So it, from those of us that where there's not a large community, we have to do our own studies, and I appreciate your help.
No, I appreciate you, dear Scott, for showing up. And it's there's so many extracts, dear Scott, from the Beloved Guardian on these forces that are surrounding us. In fact, in an upcoming session, when we get back into Advent to Divine Justice, I'm going to expand on this section. We're talking about it's something very interesting, and I've been doing more compilation and studying on it, because the Beloved Guardian, throughout his writings, this is another one of his common themes. So one of his common themes is integration, disintegration. Another common theme is talking about the dark forces that surround us, and how, as Baha'i community, whether it's American Baha'i community, but even the general Baha'i community, we have to equip ourselves, and how we are supposed to take on. First, Advent to Divine Justice, the entire 124 paragraphs, 77 pages, is really about the dark forces surrounding that community, namely the degeneracy of the three things, really: corruption, racism, as well as materialism. The dark forces surrounding that community, and how that community needs to equip itself through rectitude of conduct, chaste and holy life, and freedom from racial prejudices, and then take on the mantle of teaching work, and then promulgate it through pioneering. So really, it's in that sense, you're spot on, in the sense of really, it takes an individual approach. And, when you said thank you to me, thank you to Clearwater, it's really thankful to any individual person that takes up the study, because that's really what we all have to do. We have to study. So getting back to this, we'll have I know I'm checking my time, 4 o'clock, and I always like to be punctual. Dear John, I'm always watching the time. Don't worry. We only got like a few slides left. Okay. So these were the qualities and attributes: calm, disciplined, unity, loyalty, sex and sacrifice, consolidation, cohesiveness. These should be written down, and then if you're serving on an institution, if you're serving on a committee, if you're serving in an agency of a cluster, even in your individual service, whatever, are you, as a faithful follower of Baha'u'llah, exhibiting these qualities: calm, disciplined, unity? If you're serving on a committee or an assembly, are you unified? And how is unity done? You got to listen. You got to listen, truly listen, so that you can hear the other heart. And I'm not talking about with these ears, with here, the inner ear and the inner eye. You see their heart, you feel their heart, you connect with them. And that's how unity is truly established. You have to read their reality. But if you are so stuck on your own opinions and thoughts, and you become so rigid, and you cannot even get past that, you're not being unified. And hence, there will be a lack of cohesiveness and there will be no consolidation. So these, you have to, as in a Baha'i community, these are goals that the beloved guardian is saying that we should work towards. Closing out, paragraph 15. This is our last paragraph of this section. Then, this is the prophetic paragraph. It says, small wonder that these prophetic words should have been revealed by Abdul-Baha. Again, Abdul-Baha states, the East, he assures us, have fairly been illumined with the light of the kingdom. Ere long will this same light shed a still greater illumination upon the West. Then will the hearts of its people be vivified through the potency of the teachings of God, and their souls be set aglow by the undying fire of his love. When we talked about this, he asserts, has immensely increased. Its greatness is now manifest. The day is approaching when it will have cast a tremendous tumult in men's hearts. Rejoice, therefore, O denizens of America. Rejoice with exceeding gladness. So to recap this last paragraph of our study for today, paragraph 15. The beloved guardian here is quoting these prophetic words of Abdul-Baha, in which he enjoins the American people to rejoice with exceeding gladness. For this day is approaching when the prestige of the faith of the Baha'i faith will have immensely increased. So he's saying, rejoice, this faith is emerging out of obscurity. Just rejoice for that fact. And will have cast a tremendous tumult in men's hearts. So do you remember from the extract from Kitab Ahdas when it says, till the limbs of men quake? This is the time when the tremendous tumult in men's hearts occurs, when the faith has emerged out of obscurity. And he's saying, this is the day, dear friends, rejoice with exceeding gladness, for the day is approaching. It's approaching when the faith of Baha'u'llah, this prestige of the faith of Baha'u'llah, will have immensely increased, and the masses of the peoples of the world and the American community will see, and their hearts will be touched, and it will create a tumult. It means that they will be suddenly shaken by the words of Baha'u'llah. So dear friends, there we go. Paragraphs 9 through 15, American, the Most Great Peace. For next time, we're going to be starting paragraph 16. This is now a pivotal paragraph in American, the Most Great Peace, because the beloved guardian is now going to be setting the stage of his 4 parts, per se, his 4 chapters covering the early American Baha'i history, starting from 1893 to 1933. So he breaks it down into 4 parts, 4 chapters. And so paragraph 16, he says what those 4 parts are. And then every upcoming session, then part, I think that was parts, so I have, so the next ones, that will be paragraph 16, and then paragraph 17 will be the breakdown of 1893 to I think 1903 and 1903, and vice versa. He goes 1903, 1910 or something, but it's in paragraph 16. Okay, excellent, dear friends. Thank you so much to another wonderful session covering paragraphs 9 through 15 of American, the Most Great Peace. Thank you.